moon hung low and swollen, its silver light painting the rolling fields in a ghostly hue as Master Aaron and his apprentice Kira stepped off the rickety stagecoach. The air felt thick, as though each breath drew in shadows. Tall grasses whispered secrets along the narrow dirt road, and beyond them, the skeletal silhouettes of ancient tombstones crouched like slumbering beasts. Kira's heart thrummed with a mixture of excitement and dread. This was unlike any village they had visited before. Master Aaron, cloaked in midnight blue robes embroidered with faded runes of warding, placed a comforting hand on Kira's shoulder. "Stay close," he murmured, voice calm but undeniably tense. They had come at the behest of the magistrate at Riversong Keep, who sent word of disturbing phenomena near the old sycamore at Moonshade Crossing, livestock found drained of life, mournful wails echoing at dusk, and villagers who dared not speak the truth. Some said the sycamore's roots reached into the netherworld, anchoring something ancient and malevolent. Master Aaron's dark eyes reflected the moonlight as he surveyed the tree's knotted trunk, its gnarled branches cresting the sky like grasping fingers. "This tree," he said softly, "is no ordinary sentinel of the grave. It conceals a seal broken long ago." Kira swallowed hard, recalling the faded sketch he had studied on the journey, a small ivory statuette, cracked and weathered, recovered from beneath the sycamore's roots. The villagers had found it half buried in dried earth, its features twisted into a rictus grin. Master Aaron believed that this figurine housed a spirit demon once chained here to protect the region from its wrath. But time and neglect had frayed its bindings, and now it clamored to break free. Kira shivered at the thought of facing such a force while moonbeams danced across the skeletal limbs of the tree. They made their way toward the cottage of Elder Maris, the only villager brave enough to invite them in. Smoke curled lazily from the crooked chimney, and the scent of damp straw mingled with herbal incense. Inside, the elder, an angular woman with streaks of silver in her raven hair, paced between a clutter of clay jars and talismans. Her eyes, sunken but sharp, widened at the sight of Master Aaron's emblematic staff. "Thank the stars you are here," she rasped. They came when the sun sank, their whispers rising from the hollow trunk. "We cannot sleep. We cannot pray. We simply wait." Master Aaron nodded solemnly and produced from his satchel a polished iron mirror and a leather-bound grimoire etched in faded ink. Candlelight flickered across the pages as he flipped to the chapter on spirit incarceration. "We must restore the seal," he explained, "but first, we must gather the 5 symbols of harmony, a drop of silver dew at dawn, a feather from the morning dove, a shard of black onyx, a fragment of bone from one who died unbidden, and the pulsing heartwood of this very tree." Kira's eyes widened at the daunting list. "We can't very well collect a tree's own heartwood without harming it," he protested. Master Aaron inclined his head. "The heartwood will be given willingly, but only after we prove ourselves, only after we demonstrate compassion, courage, and an unwavering resolve to restore balance." Night deepened. Master Aaron and Kira stepped out into the clearing where the sycamore's roots formed a labyrinthine web. Under the spectral glow, the ground glimmered with silver dew. Kira knelt and cupped his hands around a single droplet, watching it shimmer like a star before sealing it in a crystal vial. Even as he rose, he sensed movement at the edge of his vision, a flicker of shadow, perhaps the shape of a wing. He approached the mossy wall of an abandoned dovecot and, whispering an apology to the restless spirits within, coaxed a sorrowful dove into his palm. The bird, its eyes rimmed in blue, cooed softly, as if relieved to be freed from its earthly cage. Gently, Kira plucked one pristine white feather and tucked it into his satchel. Meanwhile, Master Aaron strode deeper into the forest's embrace, chanting in a hushed wartime cadence that resonated among the oaks and birches. From the folds of his robe emerged pieces of onyx he had brought for this very purpose, each one warmed by his palm, suffused with his intent to bind rather than to harm. He placed the largest shard at the tree's base, embedding it within the earth like a key. The ground trembled, and a low moan rippled through the clearing, as though the earth itself exhaled in relief. When they reconvened, Kira's satchel held the first two tokens, dew and feather. Master Aaron held the onyx receptacle in his open palm, its facets catching the candlelight like obsidian stars. But still, two trials remained. By dawn, Master Aaron said, "We must seek a wayward traveler who perished at the sycamore's roots and claim one fragment of their unjustly lost bone. Then, at the very hour of twilight, we must convince the tree to offer its own marrow of heartwood." He paused, gaze drifting back toward the towering sycamore. "Only then will the seal respond to our call." As they extinguished their lanterns and lay upon the straw-strewn floor, Kira's thoughts churned between fear and determination. Restless memories of the dove's sad eyes and the sycamore's haunted groans swirled through his mind. Outside, the wind fetched through the branches, carrying with it a whisper that seemed to speak his name. He rolled onto his side and closed his eyes, preparing for the trials to come. For in this forest of midnight whispers, the boundary between the living and the damned was perilously thin, and once the seal was reforged, neither mortal nor immortal would be the same again. The first rays of dawn crept across the clearing, pale gold filtering through the skeletal branches of the ancient sycamore. Master Aaron stirred, his eyes reflecting the soft light as he rose from the straw bed. His apprentice, Kira, was already awake, kneeling outside the cottage, inhaling the chill air. In the distance, the village lay silent, doors closed, windows shuttered against unseen terrors of the night. Kira felt a tremor in his chest. Today would bring the next trials. Master Aaron joined him without a word. Together they walked to the moss-clad trunk of the sycamore, where the onyx shard and the crystal vial of silver-flecked dew lay nestled on a patch of fallen leaves. Kira retrieved the vial and felt its reassuring weight in his hand. Beside it, the morning dove's feather, gentle and pale as moonlight, fluttered softly in the breeze. "Two down, 3 to go," Aaron whispered, voice low. "Now comes the hardest, the bone fragment of the traveler, and then the hardwood of the tree itself." Kira nodded. He remembered the magistrate's tale. 6 nights ago, a foreign merchant named Elias had ridden through Moonshade Crossing, seeking shelter beneath the sycamore's leafy canopy. He'd camped by its roots and vanished with the dawn, his horse found tethered, the man gone without a trace. Villagers whispered that he'd been claimed by the spirits that dwelled in the hollow trunk, a sacrifice to keep the ancient seal intact. To retrieve a shard of bone from his remains would mean venturing into that hollow heart. Master Aaron closed his eyes, raising the iron mirror he had used the night before. Its polished surface caught the dawn light, and Aaron murmured an incantation so soft it might have been the rustle of grass. Kira watched as the mirror's face darkened, shifting to reveal a scene beneath the ground, a shadowed crypt carved into the sycamore's broad root. Within, Elias lay prone, his form twisted, as if entwined with roots that had grown around him like living vines. A hush fell over the clearing. Then Aaron snapped the mirror shut and turned to Kira. "We must enter the crypt before noon, before the sun's warmth dissolves the barrier between worlds. Take this lantern, its flame will guard against wraiths." He handed Kira a small brass lantern, its wick already aflame with a pale blue glow. They approached the sycamore's largest root, where a narrow opening yawned darkly. Kira hesitated. From within came a low, mournful moan, like the wind sighing through bone. "Remember," Aaron said, placing a hand on his shoulder, "compassion must guide you." This soul was lost without knowing why. Speak to him as you would any frightened child. Taking a deep breath, Kira crouched and squeezed through the gap. The lantern's glow revealed a spiraling tunnel of root and earthen wall, slick with moss. As he crept forward, the air grew cold, and the walls pulsed with the faint heartbeat echoes of the tree's own ancient life. At the end of the tunnel lay a chamber carved from root wood, illuminated by flickers of the dying lantern light. In its center, half buried in rich soil, lay the body of Elias. His eyes were closed, expression peaceful despite the unnatural embrace of the roots. Kira approached slowly, heart pounding. "Elias," he whispered, voice trembling. "I mean you no harm. I come to plead for a fragment so that the seal can be restored and no more must suffer." At his words, the chamber trembled. A soft voice drifted through the air, "Who dares disturb my rest?" Kira froze, then forced himself to speak more clearly. "A disciple of Master Aaron. We seek your aid to bind a darker force. Your sacrifice need not be forgotten." A pale mist coalesced above the body, forming a spectral silhouette of Elias, a tall figure draped in travel-worn cloak, eyes luminous with sorrow. The apparition studied Kira for a moment, then bowed its head. "If by my bone you can protect others, take it. But promise you will honor my memory." Kira knelt and gently touched Elias's forearm, where the skin had long since faded to parchment. Placing his metal knife blade against the forearm bone, he murmured a prayer for forgiveness. With a soft crack, he harvested a small fragment no larger than a child's fingernail and carefully wrapped it in a strip of cloth from his own sleeve. The apparition let out a grateful sigh and dissipated into motes of silvery dust. Kira stood, pressing his hand to his chest. A wave of relief washed over him. As he turned to leave, the tunnel shuddered, sending a shower of root fragments to the floor. He scrambled back through the narrow passage just as it sealed behind him, the opening closing as if it had never existed. Outside, Master Aaron was waiting beneath the sycamore's broad canopy. "You have done well," he said, placing a hand on Kira's shoulder. "Now only one task remains, to beg the heartwood from this ancient sentinel. Its own lifeblood will complete the seal." Kira held up the wrapped bone fragment, and Aaron produced a small black leather pouch already containing the onyx shard and the mirror caught dew. Place the fragment here, he instructed. Then, lifting the mourning dove's feather, he touched it to the sycamore's bark. As the feather brushed the rough wood, a faint glow traced the feather's shaft, as though the tree recognized the symbol of the free spirit. Suddenly, the wind stilled. The clearing fell silent, every creature holding its breath. Then, the sycamore's bark at the point of contact split open like a flower in slow motion, revealing a pale core of living heartwood, pulsing like a giant heartbeat visible to the eye. A soft, resonant hum filled the air, vibrating through bone and leaf alike. Master Aaron stepped forward, unwrapping the bone fragment and placing it on a carved stone slab at the base of the exposed heartwood. Kira watched, transfixed, as Aaron traced ancient glyphs in the air with the iron mirror. The dew-filled vial glowed, and Aaron uncorked it, letting the silvered droplets fall one by one onto the stone. Each drop absorbed into the slab, hissing softly like rain on embers. When the last drop vanished, Aaron took the shining fragment of hardwood from the tree's core. It glowed with inner warmth, as though alive. He carefully tucked it into the pouch alongside the other tokens, dew, feather, onyx shard, and bone. The symbols of harmony were complete. As the pouch snapped shut, the sycamore sighed a deep, resonant sound like an ancient bell tolling. The branches trembled, shedding a shower of silvery leaves that drifted down around them, carpeting the clearing in light. Kira's heart soared. The trials had been triumphed through compassion, courage, and respect. Master Aaron smiled for the first time since they'd arrived. You have honored your promise to show kindness, to face fear, and to protect balance. He placed a hand over his heart. Tonight, we weave the seal anew. But Kira sensed that the journey was far from over. In the shifting shadows beneath the sycamore's limbs, something darker stirred, watching, waiting. The real test, he understood, would come when they attempted the final ritual, for a power as old as the world itself would not yield easily. The air hummed with possibility, danger, and the promise of revelation. And as the last leaf settled on the forest floor, Kira felt his destiny entwine irrevocably with the ancient magic of Moonshade crossing. Dawn had barely broken when Kira awoke to a strange vibration in the earth, softer than thunder, yet more insistent than a heartbeat. He rubbed his eyes and peered out at the sycamore's clearing. Where the ancient tree had stood in solemn motion the night before, there was now a gathering of villagers, their faces pale and drawn as if they had known fear all their lives. At the center of the circle stood Elder Maris, her raven hair bound with sprigs of night-blooming flowers, her hands raised as though to still a storm. Master Aaron, she called out, voice quavering, they've come. Before Aaron or Kira could respond, a ripple ran through the ring of watchers, and a ragged procession of figures shuffled into view. They were not townsfolk, but travelers, 6 in all, clad in mismatched cloaks and bearing lanterns whose flames danced with unnatural hues, violet, emerald, sapphire, crimson, amber, and obsidian. Their faces were obscured by wide-brimmed hats or scarves, but each carried a small chest at their side, carved with runes that pulsed faintly in the dim light. Guests, Master Aaron said, stepping forward and squaring his shoulders. or intruders. One by one, the strangers circled the sycamore's trunk. At the violet flame's approach, the bark glimmered like whetstone; at the crimson, it smoked; at the emerald, it tinkled as if struck by raindrops; and at the obsidian, it seemed to absorb all light. Kira clutched the leather pouch of tokens at his belt, heart pounding. This was no simple festival, this was something older, something that predated even the seal they had just reforged. The tallest of the six, his lantern-burning sapphire bright, spoke first. His voice was low, tinged with an accent Kira could not place. "We are the keepers of the shattered echo," he intoned. "We seek the heartwood." A murmur rippled through the villagers. "They want the very core of the tree." One woman gasped. Elder Maris bowed her head. "They come every decade," she explained to Master Aaron. "When the seal is renewed, the echo demands its tithe. If we refuse, the sycamore's slumbering pain will rip our village apart." Aaron's dark eyes narrowed. "Then you have been sacrificing travelers for generations." Maris nodded, tears glistening. "We have no choice." Kira felt a surge of anger. The villagers had used the seal not only to protect themselves from the demon beneath the roots, but also to appease these keepers at the cost of innocent lives. He remembered Elias, the merchant whose bones had fed the seal, and wondered how many others had suffered in silence. The sapphire lantern keeper lifted his lantern, its flame humming like a struck gong. "The heartwood must be offered by someone of pure intention," he declared. "If you refuse, the festival of shattered echoes will commence. Our lanterns will shatter the seal and claim what remains, heedless of the avalanche it will unleash." A hush fell. The villagers exchanged terrified glances. Aaron stepped forward, his voice calm but resolute. "Then let us prove our intention. We will offer the heartwood ourselves willingly and without deceit. But if your ritual demands more blood, then you will face the consequences." The six keepers conferred in hushed tones. Finally, the emerald-flamed lantern lowered. "Very well. We will conduct the trial of concordance. You have until the third bell of noon to present the heartwood unblemished and unspoiled by malice. Fail, and we will take it by force." With that, the keepers melted back into the forest, their lanterns tracing arcs of jewel-toned light before vanishing like will-o'-the-wisps. The villagers exhaled in relief, only to realize that the trial had begun and they had precious little time. By mid-morning, Master Aaron and Kira had convened beneath the sycamore once more, the pouch of tokens laid out on a flat stone. The dew in the vial sparkled like a miniature galaxy, the dove's feather lay as pure as freshly fallen snow, the onyx shard hinted at shadow's edge, the bone fragment glowed faintly with Elias's final breath, and the heartwood, still wrapped in cloth, pulsed softly. "We must purify the heartwood," Aaron explained. "It must remain free of anger and fear, for any trace of malice will poison the seal." Kira nodded, recalling the villagers' desperation. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, centering himself in the calm core he had nurtured through every trial. When he opened them again, the heartwood trembled in his hand, and a warm, golden light spilled from its grain. "Place the heartwood upon the altar," Aaron whispered, gesturing to the stone slab. Kira laid it down gently, and the golden glow bathed the clearing in soft warmth. The 5 tokens formed a pentagon around the wood, each flame of the keeper's departed lanterns flickering in the breeze. Then the ground shuddered. The festival of shattered echoes had begun. From the forest's edge, shards of colored light tore through the air, jagged beams that fizzled as they struck the tokens. The dew cracked like spun glass, the feathers singed, the onyx chipped, and before Kira could react, the bone fragment shattered into motes of dust. "No!" Kira cried, rushing forward. But Aaron placed a restraining hand on his shoulder. "Stand firm. Let the ritual test your resolve." The colored beams converged on the heartwood, which raged like a miniature sun. A howl rose from the sycamore's roots, higher, keener, the cry of a beast unchained. The villagers cowered, and Elder Maris clutched Aaron's cloak, eyes wide with terror. "Now," Aaron murmured, "we must call upon the spirit of the tree." He lifted the iron mirror and caught the sunlight, directing a beam toward the glowing heartwood. "By compassion, by sacrifice, by the promise kept, I call upon Moonshade's spirit, protect what we have restored." The mirror's light coalesced into a pillar that struck the heartwood. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like 1,000 bells, the 5 shattered tokens reassembled, silver dew droplets dripped back into the vial, the dove's feather reknit itself strand by strand, the onyx shard reformed, the bone fragment reattached. The pentagon of tokens glowed, and the heartwood's light steadied into a gentle pulse. The colored beams snapped back, drawn into the tokens like moths to flame. One by one, they dissolved, and the festival of shattered echoes fell silent. The clearing lay calm, as if untouched by the chaos. Master Aaron lowered the mirror, breathing heavily. "They have accepted our offering," he said softly. "The seal endures." But Kira's gaze was fixed on the forest's edge, where the 6 keepers had reappeared, their lanterns now unlit. The sapphire-flamed leader bowed deeply. "You have proven worthy," he said. "The seal remains intact. Moonshade's spirit will sleep another decade." He stepped forward and plucked the leather pouch from Aaron's belt. Opening it, he examined each token before returning the pouch. "May your hearts remain true, for next time the echoes will be more demanding." With that, the keepers turned and vanished into the trees, leaving behind only an echo of colored light that faded like a dream. As the villagers exhaled in relief and began to weep with gratitude, Master Aaron turned to Kira, a wry smile on his lips. "Well done, my apprentice. You have faced malice and emerged unbroken. Yet this victory carries a price, the echo remembers, and its watch is not easily forgotten." Kira nodded, though his mind raced with questions. Who had first forged the bond between the keepers and the sycamore? What greater forces lay hidden beneath the earth? And as he gazed at the hardwood's gentle glow, he wondered whether the seal truly protected them or whether it merely postponed a reckoning centuries in the making. But for now, their task was done. As the sun climbed higher, Master Aaron and Kira gathered the restored tokens and prepared to set out once more, bound for the next mystery that awaited beyond the veil of Moonshade Crossing. The morning sun draped Moonshade Crossing in misty tendrils as Master Aaron and Kira shouldered their packs and prepared to depart. The villagers gathered at the edge of the clearing, offering loaves of rye bread still warm from the oven, vials of dried herb tea, and hand-woven cloaks to ward off mountain chills. Elder Maris pressed a small, rune-etched amulet into Kira's hand. "This will guide you when the path splits," she whispered. It belonged to Elias before he vanished. "May it keep you from the shadows he could not escape." Kira bowed deeply, gratitude and solemnity mingling in his chest. Master Aaron closed his eyes for a moment, committing the sight of the ancient sycamore, its hardwood sealed once more to memory. Though they had restored the seal, both teacher and apprentice felt the tremor of distant unease. The festival of shattered echoes had tested more than their will, it had awakened something beyond it. Forest's edge. They set off along the winding river bank, where driftwood formed natural stepping stones across shallow pools. Mist clung to the surface of the water, and the air smelled of damp stone and new growth. Kira fell into step beside Aaron, listening to the gentle hum of river stones underfoot. "Master," he ventured, "why do the keepers return every decade? And why demand the hardwood again, if the seal remains intact?" Aaron's gaze drifted to the distant hills. "Legend says the keepers are bound to this place by a debt older than memory. They ensure that the seal remains unbroken by testing those who hold it. But over centuries, the original purpose has been lost, whether it was to contain a god, a demon, or some force indifferent to mortal plans. All that remains are the rituals and the recurring price." He paused over a narrow wooden bridge spanning a deeper chasm. Below, a ribbon of river tumbled over mossy stones. "Our next destination lies beyond the forgotten viaduct. There, an abandoned railway once carried iron trains etched with runes of summoning. Now the viaduct arches over a valley choked with bramble and rumor. No map marks the crossing, only those who bear the old amulet can find it." Kira pressed the rune-etched amulet in his palm. He felt its surface warm, as though alive. Sure enough, a faint pulse of light traced the lines of its inscription. "It's guiding us," he said, astonished. Ahead, through a veil of ivy, he glimpsed the skeletal remains of iron girders arching skyward. Thick vines crept along the rusted steel, and clusters of black berries glistened like beads of tar in the morning sun. They climbed up a forested slope to the base of the viaduct. The stone pillars rose like colossal fingers carved by giants, each block etched with symbols half eroded by centuries of wind and rain. A rusted rail rope between pillars, its ties rotted. Underfoot, broken ties snapped and swayed. A single plank offered a precarious path across the gap. Beneath, the valley floor lay shrouded in dense mist. Kira could not see its bottom. Master Aaron tested the plank's strength with the tip of his staff, then nodded. We cross together, but be wary, the viaduct's magic still lingers. It may remember travelers lost upon its span and draw us into its echoes. With steady breaths, they stepped onto the plank. The board groaned underfoot, and a gust of wind swept through the chasm, carrying voices so faint that Kira thought he must be imagining them, whispers of warnings and pleas for help. Halfway across, the plank cracked. Kira stumbled, arms flailing. Aaron lashed out with his staff, sending a bolt of electric blue energy into the plank space. The broken wood shuddered, splintered, and reknit itself as ghostly timber, solid once more beneath their feet. Kira gasped in amazement. "I didn't know you could do that." Aaron offered a small smile as they reached the far side. Few know that the staff's core is tuned to the ancient ley lines of these bridges. It restores old wood so long as the bridge remembers the traveler's intent. Let us hope it remembers kindness. They stood at the end of the viaduct, where the world beyond unfurled into a meadow of silver grass, each blade upright as if standing at attention. At the meadow's edge, a derelict station building crouched beneath a tangle of steel and ivy. Its sign, half obliterated by time, reads simply, "Echo Hold." Kira shivered. A shroud of hush lay over the grass, broken only by the distant echo of clangs like broken bells tolling a warning. Aaron crossed his arms. This was the central hub for summoning trains, the echo lines. They ferried spirits to and from distant realms at the will of the old kingdom. But then something went wrong. He led Kira to the station entrance. Through shattered windows they saw dusty benches and rotting lanterns. On a platform stood the ruin of a carriage, its doors hanging ajar. Inside, seats were upended, and the floor was littered with faded tickets stamped with runic seals. Some still clung to the metal, swaying gently in the breeze that whispered through the carriage. Kira bent to pick up a ticket. Passenger, lost soul, destination, beyond the veil. A sudden chill swept through the station. Kira looked up to see a pale figure drifting toward the carriage. It wore tattered riding leathers and held the shape of a man, though its features were blurred like a half-forgotten dream. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, and long hair floated as if underwater. As it reached the carriage, it raised a spectral hand to knock. But the knock passed through wood and metal without sound. Kira's pulse quickened. "Master, it's a traveler." Aaron nodded grimly. "One who awaits passage. We cannot leave it trapped here. But if we free it without care, it may latch onto us as a guide and lead us into the unknown." The apparition turned its head, and its eyes, empty voids framed by a faint glow, fixed on Kira. A whisper escaped its lips: "Passage, home, lost." Kira swallowed. "What do you want?" The specter's lips formed words that were carried on an echo only he could hear: "Heal the line. Bind the tracks. Send me on." Aaron stepped forward, staff raised. "Speak, spirit. What binds you here?" How may we grant you passage without unleashing the echo's wrath? The figure floated closer. Each step it took left a frosty imprint on the wooden floor. Kira gasped as the imprint glowed a cold blue. The line was fractured when the great departure, the ritual, pain, betrayal, its voice tapered into a wail that resonated through the broken station. They abandoned me, left me to linger, in limbo. Kira nodded, understanding dawning. So if we repair the tracks, complete the ritual, you can pass on. The ghost's hand drifted toward the broken rail outside, where a gap yawned between two severed lengths of iron. With a guttural moan, it beckoned. Aaron exchanged a glance with Kira. Very well. But the ritual requires our combined will. He handed Kira the grimoire. Read the incantation for spirit passage. I will channel the energy through my staff to bind the rails. Kira opened the aged pages to a section titled Rite of Restored Passage. The ink was faded, but the words shimmered under his touch. By iron's metal and ether's breath, we mend the wound of timeless death. Through unity of living hand, we guide the lost to better land. Let the broken rail be whole. Free the captive wandering soul. Kira began to chant in a clear, steady voice. As he spoke the final syllable, Master Aaron thrummed his staff against the ground. A crackling wave of energy pulsed along the rails, and the severed ends glowed white-hot. Sparks arced between the gap, weaving filaments of molten iron that rejoined with a hiss of steam. The tracks hummed, then stilled. The ghost's hollow eyes brightened, and it turned to face Kira. Its form shimmered as though buffered by a luminous veil. It nodded once, twice in gratitude, then drifted toward the carriage once more. With a soft gust, the carriage sprang to life, lights flickered in lantern holders, and the wheels emitted a groan as though rolling on hidden tracks. Doors shut with a decisive click. Kira watched, breath held, as the carriage's interior glowed with spectral lamplight. Then, with a gentle whistle like wind through a flute, it departed into the darkness beyond the station, the specter's shape dissolving into a cloud of motes that dissipated among the reeds. Silence settled, but it was heavy with significance. Kira closed the grimoire and met Aaron's gaze. They have peace now, he said softly. Aaron placed a hand on his shoulder. And we have earned the favor of the echo lines. These rails will recall your name should you ever be lost. But more importantly, you have learned a crucial truth: compassion mends what force cannot. Always remember that. Kira nodded, heart swelling with newfound confidence. He stepped outside and traced the newly welded rail with his fingertip cold beneath his glove, yet humming with latent energy. Beyond the viaduct, the silver grass shimmered in the late afternoon light, and the path ahead was clear, further north, into the Shadow Fen, where the next trial awaited. As they gathered their packs and turned toward the uncharted marshes, Kira felt the weight of adventure settle comfortably on his shoulders. Each step carried them toward unknown dangers, but also toward the promise of restoring balance in a world woven with ancient magic. forgotten pacts, and the enduring power of mercy. And with Master Aaron by his side, he knew they would face whatever came next together. Mist clung to the low-lying marsh as Master Aaron and Kira made their way along a narrow boardwalk that groaned beneath their weight. Each weather-worn plank lay slick with moss and half submerged in murky water, the surface broken by clumps of frost-tipped reeds. The pale sun hovered just above the horizon, its feeble rays struggling to pierce the gray cloak of fog. Kira tightened the straps on his pack and glanced back at the carriage tracks spiraling off into the distance, his first shadowed lesson in compassion and ritual complete. Beyond them lay the Shadow Fen, the next crucible in their quest to restore harmony. "Stay close," Aaron whispered, voice hushed. His dark robe swished lightly as he shifted his staff, its carved runebands still glowing faintly from the repaired viaduct ritual. "These marshes breed more than mosquitoes, boy. Legends speak of the Fen Wraith, a drifting spirit that lures travelers into hidden bogs, then feeds on their memories." Kira swallowed and bit his lip. He'd heard the trials would grow more dangerous, but nothing prepared him for this hush of dread. They stepped forward, the planks tilting as though eager to pitch them into the fetid water. The air tasted faintly of peat and decay, and every rustle of cattails felt like a breathed warning. Midway across the boardwalk, the fog shifted, revealing an archway of blackened willow roots twisted overhead like the gaping jaws of some ancient beast. Aaron held up his lantern, its flame now a steady white, and beckoned Kira through. "The rotted gate," he murmured. "It marks the boundary beyond which mortal senses deceive. Once we pass, our fears may take form." As they slipped beneath the willow arch, a low murmur echoed around them, as if a chorus of whispered regrets rose from the water. Kira's heart hammered. He tightened his grip on the leather pouch of tokens at his belt, the dew, the feather, the onyx, the bone, and the hardwood, all safe for now, but fragile if tested by malice. Ahead, the boardwalk forked into three paths. One veered left toward a cluster of pale birches, another led straight into denser fog, the third angled right toward a rotting wooden sign, half submerged, its carved letters worn smooth. Aaron paused, placed a gnarled hand on the sign, and brushed away centuries of slime to reveal, "Mind the Soul Bridge." Beneath it, smaller runes glowed, "Only truths unbroken may pass." Kira peered at the three routes. "Which way, Master?" Aaron closed his eyes and held the rune-etched amulet Elder Maris had given them. It pulsed in his hand, its light growing warmer as he turned to face the right-hand path. "The Soul Bridge awaits beyond that way. But we must each speak our greatest regret and carry the burden honestly. Only then will the bridge solidify." Kira's blood chilled. He remembered the hesitant lies he'd whispered the night he first practiced the sealing incantation, how he'd claimed mastery of fear he did not yet fully feel. And before that, the doubt that had shaken him when Elias's spirit spoke. His cheeks burned. Aaron nodded, and they stepped to the edge of the three-pronged boardwalk, where the planks ended and the water lapped hungrily beneath. Aaron knelt and drew a shallow circle in the mud with his staff. Within it, he traced two lines, one toward the birches and one toward the dense fog. "Then speak, Kira. Tell the Fen Wraith the truth you carry." His voice was calm, but the ground beneath quivered as though eager to swallow the confession. Kira inhaled, steadied himself, and knelt beside Aaron. "I lied," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I told you I was ready for each trial, but I wasn't. I pretended to be strong, but I was afraid." His words echoed unnaturally, as if the fog itself repeated them. He rose and stared at the misty expanse. "I regret not trusting in my own fear, for it guided me toward honesty." At once, the path through the fog trembled, and a narrow plank emerged, stretching into the mist like a silver thread. Kira exhaled, relief warming his chest. Aaron placed a hand on his shoulder, then stepped back to the left side. "My turn," he murmured. Master Aaron straightened, drew a rune in the air with his staff, and spoke in a low, resonant tone. "I once bound a spirit to save a kingdom, but in doing so, I trapped its innocence and lost sight of mercy. I regret that I prized order over compassion." The ground shuddered again, and the path through the birches shimmered into focus, revealing wood and leaf gilded by a pale green light. Kira looked between the two emerging paths. "Which one is the soul bridge, Master?" Aaron's lips quirked. "Both are false. The soul bridge is the road we create together, forged by trust and shared truth." He closed his eyes, and the two illuminated planks drifted apart, weaving themselves together into a single, wider bridge of mist-woven wood. It arched above the water, its surface solid and glowing with intertwined runes of white and green. They stepped onto the bridge side by side. With each footfall, the runes under their boots sparked, casting fleeting reflections on the water below. Halfway across, the mist thickened, coalescing into a pale humanoid shape, the Fen Wraith. Its form was slender and elongated, its eyes empty hollows, and its voice a chorus of faint, sorrowful sighs. "You carry regret," it breathed, drifting toward them. "But do you carry hope?" Kira swallowed and glanced at Aaron. Master Aaron raised his staff, rune bands glowing. "We do," he said firmly. "Hope born of penance and mercy. Fen Wraith, accept our passage." The wraith paused, tilting its head. The mist around its heart pulsed. Then, as though reassuring itself, it reached out and touched the runic patterns on the bridge. The runes blazed white and green, and the mist dissolved into a shower of glimmering motes that drifted over the water. "You may pass," the wraith whispered. "Carry your truths but leave fear behind." With that, it faded, and the bridge's glow softened to a gentle moonlit silver. Kira's heart pounded, and Aaron placed a steady hand on his back. "Well done," he said. "You faced fear and regret, but also hope. The soul bridge remains intact." They reached the far side of the fen, where the boardwalk ended in tussocks of black grass. Beyond lay a narrow, winding trail up a low hill crowned by an obsidian obelisk. Strange glyphs pulsed on its facets, faint as heartbeat echoes. Aaron studied the obelisk, brow furrowed. "This marks the entrance to the forgotten sanctum," he said. "Within lies our next trial, a final reckoning of what we have learned so far. Only by carrying truth, compassion, courage, and respect can we enter unscathed." Kira nodded and stepped forward. The glyphs flickered, illuminating the path ahead. As the mist cleared behind them, he felt the weight of every trial settled in his soul, yet with it, a growing confidence. For he knew that as long as they remained true to the principles they honored, no shadow fen, no ancient seal, no spectral wraith could stand between them and the light of their resolve. And with Master Aaron by his side, the path to balance and to whatever dark secret lay in the forgotten sanctum stretched before them, bright with possibility. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Master Aaron and Kira reached the base of the obsidian obelisk atop the low hill. Its dark surface absorbed the morning light, reflecting only the faint pulse of arcane glyphs carved deeply into its facets. Dew glistened like molten silver in the crevices between each rune, and an unnatural stillness cloaked the air. "Here lies the forgotten sanctum," Aaron said, voice low and reverent. He traced one finger along a looping rune that resembled a coiled serpent. Legends speak of a hidden chapel carved into the bedrock beneath this obelisk where the original seal on the spirit demon was first forged. No living soul has entered in centuries, for the sanctum tests every intention and memory against the truth one carries within. Kira swallowed, excitement and dread dancing in his chest. He recalled every trial they had survived, the fractured seal beneath the ancient sycamore, the festival of shattered echoes, the tormented spirit of Elias, the restored rail at Echo Hold, the soul bridge over the shadow fen. Each had been a test of compassion, courage, truth. Now, the final reckoning awaited. Aaron laid the rune-etched amulet on the ground. It pulsed in response to the obelisk's aura, shedding pale light across the grass. "Place your palm here," he instructed, "and recall every token we carry, the silver dew of dawn, the morning dove's feather, the onyx shard, Elias's bone fragment, and the hardwood's glow. Let them guide you through the entrance." Kira kneeled and pressed his palm to the amulet. He closed his eyes and let each memory flow through him, the trembling dew on his fingertips, the dove's soft coo in his hand, the onyx's cool weight, the bone's solemn sacrifice, and the hardwood's gentle pulse. As he focused, the glyphs on the amulet and obelisk blazed in unison. A low hum resonated through the air, and the obelisk's base slid open, revealing a narrow stairway that descended into darkness. Taking a deep breath, Kira rose. "Ready, Master?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Aaron nodded, staff in hand. Together, they stepped into the passage. A chill wind drifted upward, carrying echoes of distant incantations. Torches set along the walls flared to life as their footsteps echoed on stone. The stairway ended in a vaulted chamber, its smooth walls carved with scenes of ancient struggle, mortals standing against a towering spectral figure whose eyes blazed like embers. Between these reliefs ran strips of metal long since tarnished, each bearing a single rune. At the chamber's center stood a circular dais, inlaid with a pattern of interlocking rings. In its midst lay a shallow basin carved from black marble, stained with centuries-old what remained of a shimmering, oily liquid. Surrounding the basin, 5 pedestals awaited the tokens: dew, feather, onyx, bone, and heartwood. Aaron stepped forward and placed the pouch of tokens beside the basin. The sanctum demands a final offering, the essence of harmony distilled. We must pour our tokens into the basin and recite the covenant of equilibrium. Kira's heart pounded. He felt the weight of every sacrifice they had made and every promise they had kept. He nodded and helped Aaron open the pouch, retrieving the vial of silver dew. By dawn's first light, he began, we sealed hope in water. Gently, he uncorked the vial and let the dew drip into the basin. Each drop sent ripples through the oily liquid, which glowed faintly in response. Aaron took the mourning dove's feather. By wing's soft grace, we carried compassion. With a steady hand, he laid the feather atop the basin. It floated for a moment, then sank, dispersing iridescent filaments into the liquid. Next, Kira held up the onyx shard. By night's embrace, we held shadow at bay. He plunged the shard into the basin. As it touched the glowing mixture, the shard's facets shimmered, and dark ripples flickered out from its core. Aaron picked up the bone fragment. Kira swallowed at the memory of Elias's final sacrifice. By mortal sacrifice, we honored the forgotten. The bone joined the other tokens, and the liquid surface flared with 1,000 ghostly lights. Finally, Kira produced the heartwood. Its warm glow brightened the chamber, casting moving shadows on the walls. By living heart, we reclaimed balance. He laid the wood gently into the basin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a deep resonance thrummed through the dais, vibrating up through Kira's feet and tingling his fingertips. The oily liquid swirled, growing luminous, and the glyphs carved into the walls began to glow. The bas-reliefs animated, the spectral figure in the stone seemed to shrink away, while the mortals' relief faces brightened with joy and relief. A voice ancient, resonant, and neither wholly male nor female filled the chamber. You who have walked through trials of mercy, truth, courage, and remembrance, speak now the covenant. Aaron lifted the emerald-etched iron mirror and caught the torchlight. Its surface shimmered with dancing runes as he recited in a firm, clear tone. By water born of dawn's tears. By wing that calms mortal fears. By shadow's depth we cast aside. By sacrifice where truth and honor bide. By living heart that pulses free. We bind all wills to harmony. Kira echoed, his voice steady. Here within this sanctified hall, we vow to answer any call. To guard the fragile balance true. To stand for hope and life anew. As their words intertwined, the basin erupted in a storm of light. The tokens dissolved, their essences melding into the glowing core. The runes on the walls burst into brilliance, and the chamber trembled as if the very bedrock rejoiced. Then, in an instant, the tremor ceased. Silence returned, yet it was charged with power. The oily liquid had vanished, leaving the basin empty and pure. The obelisk's glyphs pulsed one final time, then dimmed to a steady glow. The ancient voice spoke once more, softer now, the covenant is sealed. The seed of harmony has taken root. Go forth, bearers of light, and let the world remember balance. Light flooded the chamber as the torches flared bright. The obelisk's doorway slid shut behind him, sealing the sanctum once more. Kira felt a warmth in his chest, the culmination of every sacrifice and promise. Aaron clasped Kira's shoulder, pride shining in his eyes. You have done it, Kira. You have honored the trials and preserved harmony. Kira smiled, tears glinting at the corners of his eyes. We did it together, Master. They ascended the stairway into the cool morning air. Outside, the hilltop basked in sunlight for the first time in centuries, the obelisk's dark surface now etched with a golden seal that radiated warmth rather than foreboding. Wildflowers bloomed around its base in riotous colors, and birdsong drifted through the gentle breeze. As they made their way down the hill toward the world beyond, Kira glanced back at the sanctum's entrance, knowing its secrets were once more safe. Ahead of them lay new journeys, new mysteries to unriddle, but he felt ready for whatever came next. For he carried within him the distilled essence of mercy, truth, courage, sacrifice, and living hope, the heart of harmony itself. And so, with the covenant sealed and the forgotten sanctum at peace, Master Aaron and Kira stepped into the dawn of a new adventure, one forged by the trials they had faced, the promises they had kept, and the enduring power of balance they now safeguarded. A week's journey beyond the hill of the forgotten sanctum, Master Aaron and Kira found themselves at the edge of a dense forest known as Evernight Hollow. Twilight draped the sky in bruised purples and deep indigos, and a damp chill clung to the air as if the woods exhaled a sigh of longing. Along the narrow path, lanterns swayed on rusted iron hooks, 6 in total, each containing a flicker of pale blue flame. The lanterns formed a half circle around a gnarled oak whose roots spread like veins across the forest floor. Kira paused at the threshold. What are these lanterns for, Master? Aaron's dark eyes reflected starlight. They marked the entrance to the realm of unrest, a prison forged by ancient mages to contain spirits too tormented even for the shadow fen or the sanctum. The lanterns ward the darkest edges, ensuring those trapped do not escape. But now, the lanterns flicker weakly. Their magic wanes. Night breeze stirred the flames, causing them to sputter. Kira stepped forward and reached out to steady one. As his fingers brushed cold metal, the flame flared, coalescing into the shape of a gaunt figure draped in tattered robes. Its hollow eyes burned with pain. In a voice like cracking ice, it whispered, "Free us, guide us." Master Aaron laid a steadying hand on Kira's shoulder. This will be our trial, to rekindle the lantern's warding flame and restore peace to the hollow. He reached into his satchel and withdrew a small silver brazier filled with coals that glowed faintly. We must sacrifice part of our own inner light, our memories of joy, to feed the lanterns and rekindle their ward. Only by sharing sorrow and release can we anchor these spirits in rest. Kira's breath caught. Sacrifice joy. But joy is what sustains us. Aaron gave a somber nod. true. But without balance, light becomes arrogance, and joy untempered invites despair. We must give so that the hollow may take nothing but solace. He set the brazier at the base of the oak. We begin with the lantern of remorse. He pointed to the lantern hung on the lowest hook, its flame guttering as though on the brink of extinction. Kira stepped forward, closed his eyes, and summoned memories of laughter shared with his childhood friends around a summer bonfire, their faces illuminated by warm light, their laughter echoing into the night. He let the memory flood him, then placed his hand over his heart and whispered, "May the warmth of my joy kindle your flame." From his palm poured a soft radiance that shimmered between tears. The lantern's pale blue flame blossomed into steady light, its hue shifting to a gentle gold before settling back to blue, stronger and true. Next, Master Aaron approached the lantern of regret, the second from the bottom. He unwound a small strip of parchment from around his wrist, inscribed with runes of mercy. On it were the words he had written long ago, confessing his own failure to save a childhood friend from a raging inferno. Aaron leaned forward, burned the parchment over the brazier's coals, and let the ashes drift upward. The lantern's flame steeled to a crisp azure, unwavering as a sentinel. With two lanterns renewed, they moved in silence to the third, the lantern of longing. Kira's tears dried on his cheeks as he closed his eyes and thought of a distant promise to return to his family's village and share the knowledge he gained on this quest. He had never fulfilled that vow, his path diverted by duty and destiny. Whispering to the hollow, he offered that longing as fuel. The flame flared, pulsing warmly before settling into a steady glow like a heartbeat. The fourth lantern bore the label of sorrow. Its light flickered violently, nearly extinguished. Master Aaron placed a comforting hand atop it, closed his eyes, and let memories of every loss he had endured wash through him, fallen comrades, lost battles, the weight of every soul he could not save. His body trembled, but he held the memory until the lantern's flame steadied, now rich in color, like the sapphire hue of grief transmuted. Only two lanterns remained, hope and rest. Kira hesitated at the lantern of hope. He knelt and closed his eyes, digging deep for the memory of his first true triumph, his father's proud smile when Kira returned victorious from a minor village rite. As he called that moment to life, tears of relief and pride mingled, and he poured that light into the lantern. It glowed a brilliant cerulean, bright enough to guide ships at sea. Finally, the lantern of rest stood before them, its flame dwindling to near nothingness. Aaron and Kira exchanged glances, knowing that neither could bear to give up their deepest rest, sleep itself. Yet the spirits of the hollow waited, their murmurs rising in an anguished chorus. Master Aaron knelt, closed his eyes, and focused on the memory of the last time he had truly slept undisturbed, within the safe walls of his childhood home before the life of trials began. He offered that fleeting peace, letting it seep into the brazier. At the same moment, Kira offered the memory of a night spent reading under lantern light with his mother's gentle voice echoing in his ear. Their combined gift pooled in the brazier, coalescing into a soft white radiance that drifted upward. The final lantern flickered once, then surged into brilliant azure white flame, illuminating the oak, the swirling mist, and the silhouettes of voiceless spirits gathered beyond the trees. The ghosts' forms shimmered, relief softening their tormented faces. They drifted forward, passing through the circle of lanterns as though walking into dawn. At the oak's base, they gathered in a silent embrace before dissolving into motes of light that scattered into the night air like fireflies. Silence fell, profound and peaceful. The lanterns burned brightly, warding the hollow with radiant calm. The gnarled oak bowed slightly, its branches releasing petals of pale silver that drifted like snow onto the mossy earth. Kira and Aaron stood hand in hand beneath the glowing lanterns. Aaron's voice broke the stillness. You have rekindled hope and soothed sorrow, offered joy and grief alike. These spirits now rest in harmony. Kira inhaled the crisp night air, his heart swelling. They're free, because we shared ourselves. The master smiled, placing a proud hand on his shoulder. Compassion honors both the living and the dead. Our journey continues, but tonight, Evernight Hollow is at peace once more. They turned to leave, the lantern's glow guiding their steps. Beyond the trees, Evernight Hollow opened onto a winding road that led toward distant mountains, their next destination lurking beyond peaks shrouded in storm. As they walked into the night, the silver petals fell at their heels, and the lanterns burned long after they had gone, a testament to the light that compassion and sacrifice could kindle in the midst of darkness. Dawn broke in jagged shards of pale light as Master Aaron and Kira crested the final ridge of Evernight Hollow. Before them stretched a narrow mountain vale known as the Howling Pass, where gales funnel between sheer granite walls and roar like a chorus of ancient spirits. Snowdrifts clung to fissures in the rock, and every step on the waist-high grasses sent plumes of white dust swirling into the biting wind. Kira wrapped his cloak tighter around his shoulders, breath visible in the cold air. I can already hear them, he shouted over the gale voices that rose and fell in a mournful song, as though the very mountains lamented a forgotten loss. Aaron nodded, his robes billowing like a dark banner. The trial of Storm Song awaits here. We must follow the ancient melody to its source and prove our resolve. Only then will the mountain spirits grant us safe passage. He raised a hand to silence the wind momentarily, his staff humming in reply with low-frequency resonance. The howl paused, replaced by a single, crystalline note that drifted from deep within the pass. They stepped onto a narrow path carved into the granite, barely a foot wide in places, winding toward a colossal archway of stone. Icicles dripped from the jagged ceiling above, and beneath their feet the rock floor was slick with frost. Every so often, the path opened onto small platforms overlooking yawning chasms, where frozen waterfalls glinted like fractured glass. As they advanced, the storm song grew louder, a rising harmony of wind through hollow rock, punctuated by rhythmic thuds as though giant drums were pounding in the distance. The voices wove together, forming ghostly lyrics in an archaic tongue that neither Aaron nor Kira recognized, yet the meaning was unmistakable, a lament for a lost covenant between mortals and elementals. At the heart of the pass, they found the source of the song, an immense cavern carved into the mountainside, its entrance guarded by two statues of winged guardians, figures half stone, half ice, their eyes set with shards of frozen sapphire. Between them lay a shallow basin of obsidian rock, into which the wind funneled like a living thing, whipping up spirals of snow that danced above its surface. This is the echo well of Storm Song, Aaron explained. Legend says that long ago, the people of the high peaks forged a pact with the wind spirits. In exchange for protection from avalanches, they would allow the storm's voice to echo through the pass. Each season. But the pact was broken, and the spirit's song turned to mourning. Kira's teeth chattered as he peered into the basin. The swirling snow formed fleeting shapes, battered banners, crumbling halls, figures cloaked in storm-torn robes. Their faces twisted in sorrow. How do we restore the pact? He called to Aaron. Aaron strode forward, setting his staff on the cold stone floor. We must offer 4 tokens to the basin, each representing a virtue the old covenant required: fortitude, grace, sacrifice, and harmony. We have each prepared something for these, but we'll need to gather a new token here, the Tear of the Storm. He produced a small leather pouch from his belt and dumped its contents onto the ledge, a polished steel medallion engraved with a mountain peak, fortitude, a white silk ribbon blessed at Echo Hold, grace, a vial of blood-tempered oil from the brazier at Evernight Hollow, sacrifice, and a silver circlet inscribed with the covenant, harmony. In the center lay an empty snail-shell chalice. The tear of the storm must be caught from the heart of the gale itself, Aaron said, his voice firm. We'll hold the chalice aloft and let the storm fill it, but only after we prove our own worth by braving the wind. Are you ready? Kira swallowed and nodded. Let's do it. They stepped into the cavern, and immediately the wind struck them like a physical force, tugging at their cloaks and stealing their breath. They staggered forward, grasping at the carved walls for support. Aaron raised his staff and traced a spiral rune in the air. A narrow shaft of calm air formed around them, like an invisible tube against the gale. Inside this air corridor, we may speak without shouting, Aaron shouted. But stepping outside is our test. Kira took a steadying breath. I'll go first. He stepped beyond the rune's circle, and instantly the storm pummeled him, swirling snow scouring his cheeks. He lifted the snail-shell chalice overhead, the wind funneled into its wide mouth, spinning snowflakes like pearls within. He held it steady as the gale bent around him. Tears froze on his lashes, but he refused to blink. After a moment that stretched into an eternity, the swirling pearls coalesced into a single, crystalline droplet that fell into the chalice with a soft chime. He ducked back into the corridor, clutching the chalice to his chest. Aaron nodded in approval. The tear of the storm, he exclaimed. Well done. They placed the chalice on the obsidian ledge. Kira retrieved the tokens and laid them around the basin in a cross shape: medallion at north, ribbon at east, vial of oil at south, circlet at west. Finally, he held the chalice above the basin's swirling center and poured the crystalline tear into the heart of the wind. For an instant, nothing happened. Then a bud of silence unfurled within the cavern, and the storm's howling receded to a soft sigh. The snow spiral slowed, then stilled. The shards of ice on the statues glowed with inner light, and the sapphire eyes flickered like candles rekindled. The basin's surface shifted, revealing a mirror-smooth pool that reflected the cavern's vaulted ceiling. A voice, both thunderous and gentle, filled the chamber. "You who reclaim lost vows, speak the oath of storm song." Aaron raised the iron mirror, its surface catching the pale light. In a clear, resonant tone he intoned, "By fortitude of mountain's spine, by grace of drifting snow and pine, by sacrifice where courage bleeds, by harmony of wind-woven deeds, we bind once more the sky's lament, and earn the storm's benevolent consent." Kira echoed the final words, his voice unwavering even as the gale trembled at the fringes of the cavern. The basin's pool brightened, and the tokens dissolved into motes of colored light that swirled together, white, red, silver, and gold rising into the arch of stone above. The wind replied with a note of pure tone, resonating in Kira's chest like the toll of a distant bell. The storm outside receded further, each gust now a playful whisper instead of a roar. Light filtered through the archway, illuminating the path ahead. The mountain walls seemed to lighten, the granite yielding moss and lichen as though thawing from an age-long sleep. Aaron and Kira exchanged a triumphant smile. "The spirits have accepted our vow," Aaron said softly. He extended his hand toward Kira. "Come, let us continue north, into the headwaters of the Silverfall River. There, the next mystery awaits." Kira clasped his master's hand, feeling warmth return to his fingers. He glanced back at the cavern, now humming with a gentle wind song that lingered like a blessing. "I'm ready," he replied, voice steady with purpose. Together, they stepped out of the trial of storm song, the howling pass transformed from a gauntlet of ice and wind into a winding trail bathed in silvery light. Ahead of them, the peaks of the Silverfall Mountains rose in jagged grandeur, and in their heart flowed a river whose waters held both peril and promise. And so, with the gale reclaimed and the covenant of storm song renewed, Master Aaron and Kira pressed on ever onward, ever bound by the principles they had sworn to uphold, toward the next chapter of their journey through a world where ancient magic and human will entwined like root and vine. Morning light filtered through the spruce boughs as Master Aaron and Kira stepped onto the banks of the Silverfall River's upper reaches. The air was crisp, tinged with the faint tang of mineral springs. Before them, the river leaped from a narrow cleft in the rock, spilling into a deep emerald pool before cascading onward in a series of jade-green falls. Mist danced above the water, refracting dawn's light into fleeting rainbows. Kira's heart thrummed at the sight. This was no mere mountain stream, but a living artery of elemental power. Aaron knelt by the river's edge, trailing a fingertip through the water. "The trial here," he said, voice hushed, "is the trial of the tides, the test of resilience and surrender. We must journey into the river's heart, retrieve a vial of its deepest current, and return without losing ourselves to its undertow. The river tests our capacity to bend without breaking." Kira gazed at the cascade, listening to its roar. "How do we begin?" Aaron produced a length of braided hemp rope from his pack. "We follow the path beside the falls to the hidden spout. There, the river vanishes underground, remerging beyond the mirror cavern. Between those 2 points lies the heart current, pure, unfiltered. But the passage is treacherous, you must dive into the falling water and let the current carry you through an underwater channel. A shiver ran down Kira's spine. He remembered the lessons of gravity and air. Water was an element he respected but did not command. Yet he nodded resolutely. I'm ready. They hiked upstream along a narrow trail, clambering over mossy stones and tangled roots. Icicles clung to overhanging ledges, dripping into the river below. At last they came to a narrow wooden platform anchored to the cliff, a precarious perch above the first plunge of the falls. A carved sign, weathered almost smooth, read, "To walk the river's vein, one must breathe the silent depths." Aaron tied one end of the hemp rope to a stout iron ring driven into the cliff face. "This rope will guide us," he explained. "Secured to our waists, it ensures we can find our way back if the current overwhelms us." He handed Kira the other end, looped through a leather sash. "Attach this next to your tokens. You'll carry the vial of heart water, but the tokens remain safe with me." Kira fastened the rope and secured his tokens pouch at his hip. He swallowed, heart pounding, as Aaron gave him an encouraging nod. "Remember your breathing. Breathe with the river's rhythm, long inhale, slow exhale. Steady your center, and let the current guide, not crush, you." Taking a deep breath, Kira stepped onto the platform. The roar of the falls was deafening, mist stung his eyes. With one last glance at Aaron, he dove into the curtain of water. For a moment, he was swallowed by white noise and pounding pressure. The world above vanished in a cocoon of foam and spray. He fought the impulse to surface and instead plunged deeper, following the rope's thread through the tumbling current. His arms ached, but he relaxed his limbs, curling into a streamlined pose as instructed. The water tugged at him like a living thing, tugging and releasing as he matched his breathing. The passage narrowed. Light dimmed to an emerald glow as he slipped into a submerged tunnel lined with slick stone. Strange luminescent fungi clung to the walls, casting an otherworldly green shimmer. He glimpsed shadows of swift-shaped silver-scaled fish darting through the current, eyes like twin moons. Ahead, the tunnel opened into a cavern as wide as a cathedral. At its center, a pillar of rock rose from a circular pool whose waters glowed with inner light. The pillar was carved with sinuous runes that pulsed in time with Kira's heartbeat. Around the pool's rim were shells and smooth stones, offerings left by countless travelers. On one side, a narrow fissure led back toward the river's vein, on the other, a chasm opened into darkness. Swallowing his fear, Kira steered toward the glowing pool. He felt the current slacken, softening around the pillar. With a trembling hand, he knelt on a submerged ledge and drew from his sash a small crystal vial sealed with a cork. He hesitated, looking into the luminous water that churned with the river's soul. Then he dipped the vial beneath the surface. The water rushed in like liquid light, filling the chamber with a ringing hum. He capped the vial tightly, holding it aloft. The glow within pulsed warmly, as though alive. Suddenly, the tunnel behind him tensed, the current quickened as if upset by his action. Water surged forward, threatening to sweep him toward the chasm. Panic clawed at his chest. He spotted the rope, trailing like a lifeline behind him, but before he could grasp it, the runes on the pillar flared white-hot, sending ripples of energy through the pool. A resonant voice echoed in his mind, ancient, gentle, and full of power. Bearer of Silver Falls heart, you have proven your courage and unity with the river's flow. But can you return whole, bearing its essence without losing your own? Kira grit his teeth, heart hammering. He summoned Aaron's teaching, surrender to the current, breathe as one with it, trust the rope to guide him back. He tucked the vial into a waterproof pouch, wrapped his arms across his chest, and dove toward the river's flow. The current snatched him, swirling around his form. He let it carry him, keeping his body limp but aware. The luminous fungi flashed past, and he caught sight of the rope at the tunnel's entrance, its twists marking his path home. He exhaled slowly, centering himself, and allowed the water's momentum to propel him back. Muscles burned, lungs ached, but he stayed calm, matching each surge with a steady breath. At last, he shot from the submerged tunnel into the frothing chamber beneath the falls. He burst into the current, fighting instinct to gasp for air. With great effort, he turned his head to the side, inhaled deeply, and kicked toward the platform. Hands closed around the rough rope, and he hauled himself free from the torrent. Collapsing onto the platform, drenched and trembling, he clutched the vial to his chest. Aaron was there instantly, his staff's runes aglow. He caught Kira's weight and helped him sit. "You have it, Silver Falls heart," he said with pride. "Now, we must offer it to the river itself, sealing our bond." Together, they walked to a smooth basalt ledge where the pool's mist settled like soft rain. Aaron drew the vial from Kira's cloak. "Speak the words of the river's covenant," he instructed, voice resonant. Kira steadied the vial, opened it, and uncorked the crystalline water. As the liquid slipped from the vial and mingled with the pool below, he spoke. "By Silver Fall's strength and patience. By currents that carve stone and time. By yielding flow that shapes the land. We honor your depth and rhyme. Accept this heart pure, unalloyed. And grant our spirits safe passage. For those who flow as one with you. Find their own true courage." As his final word faded, the river responded. The mist around the pool thickened, then parted to reveal the water's surface calm and mirror-like. The pillar's runes glowed steadily before dimming to a soft green. A chorus of rushing water deeper, more harmonious than before filled the vale. Aaron laid a hand on Kira's shoulder. "The bond is restored. We carry the river's blessing." He paused, eyes on the cascades. "Our journey continues northward along Silver Fall's banks, to the Valley of Whispers, where the final trial awaits." Kira nodded, chest heaving with exhilaration and relief. He slipped the now empty vial into his pack, its echoing resonance still alive in his bones. As they descended from the platform, the morning sun broke fully through the pines, illuminating the falls in brilliant emerald light. Every droplet shimmered like a gem, and Kira felt the rivers surge within him not as a force to conquer, but as a partner in the great tapestry of balance they had sworn to protect. With Master Aaron at his side and Silverfall's heart secured, Kira stepped confidently into the next chapter of their epic quest, toward the Valley of Whispers, where fate's final note hung on the edge of a breath. The road narrowed as Master Aaron and Kira left the thunderous cascades of Silverfall behind and descended into the Valley of Whispers. Towers of wind-smoothed limestone rose on either side, their surfaces mottled with lichen and veined with emerald moss. Here the air lay still, unnaturally so, until one's breath seemed to crackle in the silence. Soft echoes floated on unseen currents, as if the valley itself murmured its secrets to any traveler who dared listen. "Welcome," Aaron whispered, his gaze scanning the canyon walls. "This is where the final trial awaits." The valley honors no spoken words, its spirits speak only in echoes. We must enter with open minds and closed mouths. Our voices, our very thoughts will be tested against the whispers of ages past. Only by truly listening can we pass. Kira nodded, heart pounding with anticipation. He remembered every challenge that had led them here, the broken seal beneath Moonshade's sycamore, the festival of shattered echoes, the trial of concordance before the keepers, the soul bridge over the shadow fen, the lantern renewal in Evernight Hollow, the storm's lament in Howling Pass, and Silverfall's potent embrace. Each had taught him courage, compassion, truth, sacrifice, and harmony. Now all those lessons condense into one final reckoning, the art of silence and the power of heedful listening. They placed their packs on a flat stone at the canyon's mouth. Aaron laid the leather pouch of tokens beside them, now empty, and removed his staff's hooded lantern. The Valley of Whispers tests not what you hold in your hands, but what you hold in your heart. Keep this lantern lit, but do not let its flame speak for you. He motioned to Kira to remain silent as he extinguished the lantern's flame. In the hush that followed, a cool breeze stirred through the chasm, as if to welcome them. Step by careful step, they entered. Each footfall echoed twice, once sharp, once muted. Then, from the canyon's depths, came a faint response, not in words, but in vibrations that stirred Kira's chest. He froze, listening. A breathless hush followed, then a susurrus of voices, too distant to discern, weaving together in pattern and cadence. They were not mere echoes of sound, but of emotion and memory, joy, sorrow, wonder, fear. Aaron placed a finger to his lips. Kira pressed a hand over his heart, steadying his pulse. Together, they walked deeper, guided by the ebb and flow of unseen tongues. The path curved around a limestone pillar crowned with delicate stalactites, their tips dripping mineral droplets that rang like tiny bells when they struck the rock below. Each drop's chime joined the valley's chorus, and Kira felt a tingle of recognition. He had heard this pattern before, in his own heartbeat when he first offered his regret at the Soul Bridge. Ahead, the canyon walls narrowed until they formed a natural amphitheater. The ground here was carpeted with silvery grasses that swayed without breeze, as though stirred by phantom hands. A shallow pool of mirror-still water lay at the center, reflecting the limestone vault above. No breeze disturbed its surface, yet ripples formed in concentric rings as echoes passed through the stone, transmitted by some unseen conduit. Aaron motioned for Kira to join him at the water's edge. "We must capture the valley's essence without uttering a word," he whispered. "Place your hand upon the water and listen with your soul. When the ripples return your echo back to you, you will know the trial is complete." Kira knelt and extended a trembling hand toward the pool. His fingertips brushed the glassy surface. The moment he made contact, a chorus of whispers surged, a symphony of voices both familiar and alien. Some spoke in lost languages, others in fragments of his own memories, his mother's lullaby, the laughter of friends, the rustle of pages in Aaron's grimoire. Over this tapestry rose deeper currents, promises he had made, lessons he had learned, and the silent vows he had not yet spoken aloud. His breath caught. He closed his eyes and focused inward, letting every fragment swirl within him, then gently set his thoughts aside and reached for only the pure echo, the valley's own voice. A soft sigh rose from the water like the exhalation of ancient stone, then settled into a single intonation that resonated through Kira's bones. He felt understood, recognized by the land itself. Aaron mirrored his gesture, placing both hands on the pool's surface. He traced a rune in the air just above the water, guiding the echo back toward the canyon walls. The grasses trembled, and the stalactites chimed in unison. Then, as though awakened, the valley answered, one long, harmonious note that soared to the limestone ceiling before dissolving into silence. Kira opened his eyes to see Aaron's satisfied nod. "You have listened without bias, without fear, without attachment. You have heard not only the valley, but yourselves." He sheathed his staff and retrieved the hooded lantern. Flaring a gentle light, he relit its wick. "Now speak, but only what the valley grants you." Kira rose and, in a hush that weighed more than thunder, whispered one word, "balance." The lantern's flame flickered in agreement, casting dancing shadows on the grasses. Aaron stepped forward and placed a hand on Kira's shoulder. "And I speak my vow, I will guard this balance with every breath and every beat of my heart." He spoke clearly, yet softly, as the echo repeated his words in a spectral chorus all around them. At that moment, the grasses around the pool wilted slightly, only to bloom anew with luminescent flowers that cast a soft, pearl-scent glow. The limestone walls brightened as well, revealing faint etchings, depictions of mortals and spirits meeting in concord, sealing pacts of mutual respect through gestures rather than words. The Valley of Whispers fell silent once more, as if satisfied. The mirror pool shimmered, then stilled. Aaron and Kira shared a look of quiet triumph. They had passed the final trial, the power of silent listening, the humility to yield one's own voice to the world, and the courage to speak only when granted permission. Without another word, they turned and walked back toward the valley's mouth. The grasses bent gently in farewell, and faint ripples echoed across the pool's surface, trailing behind them like ghostly guides. As they emerged into the light, the limestone towers seemed to bow, scattering a soft rain of pearl-scent petals that drifted down around them. Master Aaron paused at the valley's edge and faced Kira. The canyon lay silent behind them, its secrets secure. "Our journey is complete," he said, voice low but full of warmth. You have proven mastery of every element and every principle: compassion, courage, truth, sacrifice, harmony, endurance, and now, the art of listening. The world beyond awaits our stewardship. Kira smiled, the weight of countless trials lifting from his shoulders even as new possibilities stirred in his heart. He glanced back at the Valley of Whispers, its echoing silence now a treasured memory. Then, with renewed resolve, he turned and shouldered his pack. "Let us return home," he said, voice soft but unwavering. Together, Master Aaron and Kira began the long walk back through the valley, stepping into the dawn of a world reborn by their trials, a world where the echoes of balance would resonate for generations to come. Mist clung thickly to the banks of the river Sylvan as Master Aaron and Kira trudged along the familiar trail back toward Moonshade Crossing. It had been nearly a full season since they'd first arrived beneath the gnarled sycamore at the village's edge, bearing the weight of an ancient seal fractured by neglect and fear. Now, having completed the trials of Concordance, Storm Song, Evernight Hollow, Silver Falls Heart, and the Valley of Whispers, they carried within them the distilled essences of mercy, courage, truth, sacrifice, harmony, resilience, and listening. The tokens they had once borne dew, feather, onyx, bone, hardwood had been consumed by the Sanctum's covenant, but their power lived on in Aaron's staff and in Kira's very soul. As the thicket gave way to open fields, they saw the speared rooftops of Moonshade Crossing gleaming pale in the dawn light, and beyond them the venerable sycamore, its trunk ringed with fresh green shoots of new growth. The villagers had tended it well since the seal was reforged, and a gentle aura of quiet peace radiated from its boughs. Birds nested in its upper branches, and the hum of bees drifted softly from wildflowers dotting the meadow. Yet as Aaron's horse cart fell silent beneath him, sensing tension in the air, both master and apprentice halted. "Something stirs," Aaron said, voice taut. Kira nodded, scanning the fields for movement. At the far edge of the cemetery among the tidy rows of headstones he glimpsed a flicker of unnatural shadow, like ink swirling in clear water. They dismounted and advanced along the worn flagstones leading to the sycamore's roots. Elder Maris stood waiting, face pale but eyes bright with relief at their return. Behind her clustered villagers, young and old, clutching lanterns even in daylight. At her side was the magistrate from Riversong Keep, Lord Arson, a tall man in travel-worn leather, together with Lyra, the magistrate's scribe, whose quill and journal were never far from her belt. Master Aaron, Kira, Elder Maris greeted them, voice trembling with emotion. The sycamore blooms anew, but last night, voices rose beneath its roots. Children wept in their sleep, and the spring by the oak stank of sulfur at dawn. She gestured toward a smoldering ring of blackened earth encircling the tree. Something has been awakened. Kira knelt at the edge of the scorch marks, tracing them with a gloved finger. Residual embers from the seal's forging, he murmured. It seems that in reforging the seal, we stirred something deeper, a secondary binding left untended. Aaron placed a comforting hand on Kira's shoulder. If a residue lingered, then the demon beneath may yet seek freedom. Lord Arson stepped forward, his authoritative presence calming. "We offered our gratitude when you first departed," he said, "but I fear we did not honor your full counsel. Our people have grown complacent in the sycamore's shadow. Now the price of neglect calls to the forgotten spirit." He drew a small silver lantern from beneath his cloak, its flame flickering with blue fire, and held it aloft. "We wish to aid you, to see this righted once and for all." Aaron nodded, eyes grave. The final step was never undertaken, a ritual of balance performed under the new moon to bind not just the demon's essence, but its very desire to escape. He rose and surveyed the villagers. "We will perform this ritual tonight. But to succeed, we must gather all who hold a vow to protection: village elders, the magistrate's guard, even the school children who first learned to plant wildflowers beneath the roots. Their unified intent will strengthen the binding." Throughout the afternoon, preparations unfolded. Villagers lit lanterns hung from the sycamore's lower branches, creating a ring of pale blue light. The blackened earth was replaced with fresh loam enriched with ash from the brazier at Evernight Hollow. Lyra scrawled runic inscriptions around the tree's circumference in chalked powder, glyphs of vow, unity, and renewal. Children, guided by elders, pressed flower petals into the powder: primroses for hope, lilies for purity, marigolds for courage. As the new moon rose, a hush fell. Master Aaron stood before the sycamore's base, moonlight casting its branches into silver filigree above them. Kira took his place beside him, heart steady. Lord Arson and Elder Maris knelt to his right, Scribe Lyra and her quill to the left, and the villagers formed a ring beyond them, each holding a single lantern or token of their own faith. A shepherd's crook, a smith's hammer, a weaver's shuttle. Aaron raised his staff, whose runebands pulsed in response to the assembled vows. "Tonight," he intoned, voice clear, "we bind not only the demon's form, but its hunger for freedom. We vow to protect this land, to live in balance with what lies beneath. We call upon the elements we have embraced: water's purity, fire's temperance, earth's steadfastness, air's clarity, and spirit's compassion to reinforce the seal." He traced a series of glyphs in the air with the iron mirror, each catching and refracting the pale moonlight. Kira followed, holding aloft the magistrate's lantern high enough for its blue fire to mingle with the runic light. As they worked in concert, the chalk powder glowed, and the petals lifted from the earth, swirling into a gentle vortex around the sycamore's trunk. The villagers murmured their vows in low unison: a pledge to tend the land, to honor the sycamore's role as guardian, to walk in balance with all unseen forces. Suddenly, a tremor rippled through the ground. The vortex of petals and chalk spiraled faster, turning into a whirling column of white and gold. From beneath the roots, a low growl emerged, far more than an animal's. The earth heaved, and a fissure snapped open around the trunk, glowing with molten ember. The demon, bound these many months, writhed beneath the soil, its hunger and rage awakened by the new moon's power. A column of shadow burst forth, a sinewy mass of roots and smoke, coalescing into a hulking shape with a face like cracked bark and eyes like liquid night. Its roar shook the lanterns, snuffing some and causing others to flicker wildly. Villagers cried out, stumbling back from the ring. Kira's heart pounded. "Master, it's feeding on our fear." he shouted. Aaron's stern gaze met his. Hold fast. This is the moment we must stand as one. He planted the staff's base into the chalk circle and pressed the mirror's surface toward the demon. By every trial we have endured, by every vow we have spoken, by every sacrifice we have made, be bound anew. The mirror flared, sending a beam of silvery light into the demon's eye. It shrieked, recoil echoing through the clearing, but the beam held. Kira stepped forward, anchored by the lantern's fire, and recited the final covenant from memory. By dawn's first dew and dusk's final light. By bird's soft wing and star's clear sight. By shadow's depth and flame's pure core. We bind you now, to roam no more. In balance forged, your hunger sealed. In unity's vow, your strength revealed. As Kira spoke, the vortex of petals and powder constricted around the demon, tightening like a living lasso. The villagers, drawn by his conviction, raised their lanterns and voices in unison, adding the power of their intent. Even Lord Arson, fierce and proud, intoned the ancient words, lantern aloft. With a final roar that cracked the air like thunder, the demon's form collapsed into a mass of tangled roots. The vortex slowed, then stilled, depositing the petals and chalk in a perfect ring. The fissure sealed, the earth ceased quaking, and the sycamore's bark glowed softly with a ring of fresh gold encircling its base. Silence reigned. The villagers stared, breathless. Elder Maris wept with relief. Lord Arson bowed his head. Aaron removed his palm from the mirror and exhaled, relief washing over him. Kira's knees buckled, and Aaron caught him, steadying his apprentice's weight. It is done, Aaron said softly. The final binding is complete. The demon's hunger is sealed, not by force alone, but by the unity of mortal hearts. Kira forced a tired smile. The land will remember us. Elder Maris knelt and picked a fallen primrose petal from the chalk, its gold still bright. She pressed it into the bark. And we will remember you, she promised. In the hush that followed, the villagers gathered around the sycamore, laying hands on its trunk, offering prayers of gratitude. The lantern glow shifted from pale blue to warm amber, as though the tree itself exhaled in contentment. Above them, the new moon shone in full clarity, its light blessing the sealing ritual. As dawn's first pale rays touched the meadow, Aaron and Kira mounted their horses. Lord Arson offered a bow. Be safe on your journeys, he said. Should you ever need aid, Moonshade Crossing stands ready. Aaron inclined his head, eyes misting. Our paths may diverge, but the bond we share endures. He looked to Kira, pride shining through his fatigue. Come, apprentice. Let us see what dawn brings. Kira swung into the saddle beside him, heart swelling with relief and hope. As they guided their mounts down the familiar trail away from the sycamore, the villagers waved, their faces bright with dawn's promise. Behind them, the ancient tree stood sentinel, its roots anchored deep and its spirit peacefully sealed in harmony with the world above. And so Master Aaron and Kira rode on, carrying the echo of every trial, the strength of every vow, and the light of balanced hearts into whatever adventures the next dawn would bring. The road beyond Moonshade Crossing stretched into the soft, pastel horizon as Master Aaron and Kira rode side by side, horses' hooves lifting small puffs of dust in the still morning air. Behind them lay the ancient sycamore, its gnarled trunk ringed with fresh golden runes and wildflower petals, a living testament to the unbreakable bond between mortal hearts and the unseen forces of the land. Before them lay open plains, gentle hills, and distant forests, new lands beyond the reach of any trial they had yet endured, waiting to be explored and protected. Kira inhaled the crisp dawn air, tasting the scent of green fields and fresh growth. The weight he had carried of fear, of uncertainty, of unspoken regret had been lifted by each challenge, each lesson in compassion, courage, truth, sacrifice, harmony, resilience, listening, and finally unity. He turned to Aaron, whose dark robes billowed like a banner in the morning breeze, and smiled. "Master," he began, voice soft with wonder, "it feels as though we have been reborn ourselves just as the sycamore blooms again." Aaron inclined his head, the corners of his eyes crinkling in a rare, gentle smile. "It is so, my apprentice. Every trial we faced was more than a test of skill or power, it was a shaping of our spirits, forging us into guardians of balance. The world still teeters on a knife's edge between harmony and chaos, and now we bear the light of dawn within us." They rode in companionable silence for a while, the only sound the rhythm of hooves on soft earth and the faint murmur of the breeze. As the sun rose higher, fields of golden grain swayed at the roadside, and clusters of wildflowers, bluebells, primroses, and daisies nodded their heads as if in greeting. A distant lark trilled overhead, its song clear and filled with promise. Aaron laid a hand on Kira's shoulder. "Our journey does not end with the sealing of a single demon or the renewal of a sacred tree. The essence of balance is dynamic, ever flowing like a river. We have learned how to weave harmony from the world's elements, but we must continue to be its weavers, tending each new tear in the fabric of the land." Kira's gaze turned inward for a moment. He pictured each trial, the hollow crypt beneath the sycamore where Elias's spirit sacrificed his bone, the festival of radiant lanterns under an ancient oak, the wind's howling lament in the mountain pass, the teeming heart of Silver Falls torrent, the silent embrace of the Valley of Whispers. Each event had left its mark on him, reshaped him. The lessons lived now in his bones and blood, that strength untempered by mercy leads to tyranny, that sacrifice without truth invites corruption, that courage must bow to compassion, that triumph built on lies is fleeting, and that only by listening can one truly understand. He sighed, a contented sound. "I understand now," he said, meeting Aaron's gaze. "To protect balance is to protect life itself in all its joys and sorrows, in all its ebbs and flows." Aaron smiled wider. "Well said." He reached into his satchel and produced a simple leather-bound journal, its cover etched with the intertwined symbols of the 5 elements and the signature rune of balance they had drawn inside. "The Forgotten Sanctum." He handed it to Kira. "We begin a new chapter, chronicling what we have learned and what we encounter. future travelers may learn from our trials and carry the light of harmony into their own lands. Kira took the journal reverently. He traced the glyphs with his fingertips, each a memory: water's purity, fire's temperance, earth's steadfastness, air's clarity, and spirit's compassion. I will record everything so that our journey is never forgotten. They continued westward, leaving behind the rolling hills and entering a valley dotted with crystal clear lakes. Near one such lake, they paused at a grove of slender birch trees whose silver bark gleamed in the sun. A small band of travelers, merchants, a wandering minstrel, and a pair of children chasing a butterfly paused to watch them pass, eyes wide with curiosity. Aaron inclined his head in greeting, and Kira raised his hand. One of the children called out, "Where have you been, sirs?" "We heard strange tales in Moonshade Crossing of demons bound, of spirits freed, and of mighty storms silenced by a blade of light." Kira laughed, a clear, joyous sound. "We traveled through many lands and passed many trials," he replied. "But you, too, can be guardians of your own world. Protect what is precious, speak only truth, and always listen to the whispers of the land." The merchant frowned thoughtfully, and the minstrel plucked a gentle chord on her lute as though capturing Kira's words in song. In that moment, Kira realized that the legacy of harmony would spread far beyond any one traveler or any one village. Each person they met, each village they passed, each whispering tree and tumbling river would carry a piece of their story forward. They resumed their journey, climbing a low rise to overlook a vast plain where ancient standing stones stood in concentric circles. Moss-covered and weather-worn, the stones bore runes similar to those at the sanctum. Here, Aaron paused. "These stones mark another convergence point, a place where the Earth's ley lines intersect. We should reinforce the harmony here before we move on." Kira dismounted and joined him at the largest stone, its surface engraved with the covenant they had recited. Together, they drew fresh glyphs of unity and renewal in the soft soil around the circle. From Kira's satchel, he offered a handful of seeds, wildflowers he and Aaron had gathered along their route. He pressed them into the earth, whispering, "May new life grow from the harmony we restored." As the last seed slipped into the furrow, a breeze stirred the grass, and sunlight caught on the standing stones, illuminating their runes in a golden glow. Birds flitted through the circle, and the distant sound of a stream trickling through the plain carried a note of cheerful promise. Aaron placed a hand on the stone and added, "So long as life endures, so must our vow to guard balance." They traveled on until twilight painted the sky in hues of lavender and rose. They reached the foothills of distant mountains, where a gentle rain began to fall, first in titanic drops, then in a steady, nourishing rhythm. Beneath the silver canopy of clouds, Master Aaron and Kira found shelter in a small way station carved into the cliffside. That night, as the wind stirred the rain against the stone walls, Kira opened the journal and began to write. "This day marks the completion of our first great quest, the restoration of harmony beneath the Moonshade sycamore and beyond. We have found the hunger of a demon, rekindled the laments of spirits, walked the tides of the river and the howls of the storm, and learned the sacred art of silence. Each trial tested not only our power, but our hearts, teaching us that balance is born of compassion," and so on, filling page after page with his memories, sketches of runes, pressed petals from distant fields, and notes on rituals learned. When at last he looked up from his writing, Aaron sat by the hearth, gazing into the dancing flames. "Well done," he said simply. "The world is richer for what we have done." Kira closed the journal and rested his head against Aaron's shoulder. "I cannot wait to see what lies beyond tomorrow's dawn," he whispered. Aaron patted his back gently. "Neither can I, apprentice. Neither can I." Outside, the rain fell lightly on the stones, and the world beyond the way station seemed to hum with life, as though the very land had sighed in relief. Somewhere in the distance, a lark sang its lullaby, carrying the promise that balance, once forged, can endure, and that the greatest adventure is not the trials we face, but the lives we touch and the harmony we weave in every step we take. And so, under a sky filled with stars emerging behind the rain clouds, Master Aaron and Kira closed their eyes, safe in the knowledge that their quest had sown seeds of hope across a wide and wondrous world, seeds that, like the sycamore and the wildflowers at the standing stones, would take root, grow, and bloom into a legacy of harmony that would endure for generations yet to come. As the rosy fingers of dawn caressed the horizon, Master Aaron and Kira rode out of the Stonecliff Way station, the soft patter of rain still mingling with their horses' rhythmic footsteps. Beyond the shelter, the world shimmered, emerald fields carpeted with wildflowers, winding streams glinting like ribbons of liquid light, and distant mountain tops crowned with fresh snow. Each landscape they passed was a reminder that their trials had restored more than a single seal. They had rekindled hope across a land that teetered on the edge of magic and oblivion. Kira inhaled deeply, tasting the promise in the cool morning air. The leather-bound journal lay open in his lap, its pages brimming with runic sketches, pressed petals, and the covenant of equilibrium penned in his careful hand. Today, he would add the final entry and epilogue to their journey so that future travelers might learn from their triumphs and stumbles alike. They followed a narrow trail that wound through a valley of sun-drenched poppies, their scarlet blooms swaying in gentle applause as the two riders passed. Ahead, the road split, one fork led northward toward the high passes of the Storm Peak Mountains, the other descended into the lush lowland vale. For a moment, Aaron and Kira exchanged a knowing glance. Their quest to safeguard balance had no single destination. Wherever imbalance surfaced, they would answer the call. But before they set off toward new horizons, they decided to fulfill a promise they had made to Elder Maris in Moonshade Crossing. Nestled beside a clear spring at the heart of the Poppy Valley was an ancient stone dais said to be the resting place of the valley's old guardian spirit. Legend held that only when all 5 elemental trials were complete could a traveler awaken the guardian and cement the covenant of harmony in that realm. They dismounted and approached the dais, its surface engraved with weathered depictions of water lilies, flame motifs, leafy glyphs, wind spirals, and spirit orbs. Kira knelt at its center, closing his eyes. He recalled the final words they had spoken beneath the sycamore's roots. By hand and heart, by ear and eye, by breath and bone, we bind as one. He placed his palm flat on the stone. Through the fabric of his cloak, he felt a hum beneath his fingertips, the stone resonating with the promise they made. Aaron joined him, placing the iron mirror atop the dais. Together, They spoke in unison, their voices carried on the wind. Guardian of the veil, we come in peace. We bring the covenant of equilibrium, mercy for the suffering, courage in the face of despair, truth to dispel deceit, sacrifice to uplift the fallen, harmony to heal the broken, resilience to stand unbowed, and listening to understand all voices. Accept our bond, and let balance flow through every glade, every glen, every living thing. A low vibration hummed through the dais, growing into a gentle pulse that spread outward in rippling waves. The grasses around the stone bent as though bowing, and from the dais rose a column of misty motes, each a pale luminescent speck like a dancing will-o'-the-wisp. The motes circled the riders, weaving a spiral pattern before coalescing into the form of a noble deer-elk creature, its antlers branching into crystalline filaments dripping with dew. Its eyes held ancient wisdom and boundless kindness. It bowed its head to Aaron and Kira. Then, with a soft breath that stirred the poppies into a silent wave, it vanished, its blessing woven into the valley itself. The dais's runes glowed once, then settled into a steady luminescence that would guide pilgrims for generations. Kira rose, heart full. The veil is at peace, Master. We have honored every land as we promised. Aaron smiled, placing a hand on Kira's shoulder. And so we carry the everlasting covenant beyond these fields. Its light will shine wherever darkness threatens. They remounted and set off once more, following the fork that led toward the Storm Peak Mountains. Their horses picked their way over rocky paths slick with morning dew, the air growing thinner and colder with each passing mile. Aaron's staff, now etched with additional runes of valley bonding, glowed softly, an ever-present echo of their deeds. As they climbed, the sky above kept pace with their ascent, shifting from honeyed dawn to brilliant blue, then toward storm-gray clouds gathering over the peaks. The wind, once a battle in the howling pass, now sang a friendly tune through the pines. Kira paused on a ledge overlooking a vast chasm where frozen mists curled like gentle serpents. Beneath them, the valley they had just blessed stretched in patchwork greens and golds, shining with renewed life. Aaron studied the distant peaks. Beyond these mountains lies the frost veil expanse, a realm bitterly cold, where spirits of ice and shadow linger. Rumor speaks of a glacial rift cracked by an ancient calamity. It calls for healers of harmony. Kira nodded, determination in his eyes. Then let us ride on, Master. May our covenant bring balm to frozen hearts and thaw the deepest of winter's grief. They pressed onward, weaving through mountain passes and zigzagging switchbacks. At midday, they paused at a natural hot spring tucked among granite boulders. Steam rose in gentle plumes, and the scent of minerals mingled with wild mountain herbs. Aaron and Kira dismounted and bathed, their weariness melting away as warm water soothed sore muscles and cleansed their dust-laden skin. In that simple moment, Kira understood a new layer of balance, the need to care for oneself so that one might continue to protect others. Later, dried and rested, they shared a quiet meal, bread infused with foraged berries, cheese pressed by villagers, and tea made from spring thistle. Aaron removed a small pouch of crystal dust left over from the sanctum's ritual. He offered it to Kira. A gift for your journal, he said. A shard of the sanctum's light, to remind you that the source of harmony is reminder enough that we are never alone. Kira accepted the dust with reverence, carefully shaking a few crystals into his satchel-bound journal. Thank you, Master. I will guard this light as fiercely as the covenant itself. As dusk approached, they reached the mountain pass where the frost veil expanse yawned beyond a frozen wasteland of jagged ice formations shimmering under a pale moon. The wind there carried the faintest echo of sorrowful howls, but also a hidden note of hope waiting to be awakened. Aaron looked to Kira, pride and affection shining in his gaze. You have grown beyond what I could have hoped, Kira. You stand ready to bring balance wherever it is threatened. Kira's voice was firm, eager. And I will stand by your side, Master, until the Covenant's light shines in every corner of the world. Under the rising frost moon, they tightened their cloaks, mounted their horses, and rode forth together toward the next test, the next people to aid, the next land to heal. Behind them trailed the legacy of every trial conquered and every promise fulfilled, woven into a tapestry of unity that would span generations. In that quiet moment, as hooves met ice and wind whispered their names, Master Aaron and Kira felt something new stir in their souls, a fierce joy in service, an unbreakable bond of teacher and student, and the unspoken knowledge that though their journey might twist and turn across myriad landscapes, its true destination was always the same, the heart of harmony itself. And so, beneath the pale gleam of the frost veil sky, the two riders vanished into the expanse, carrying with them the dawn of an everlasting covenant, a promise that balance, once forged, shines ever. Onward, lighting paths in even the darkest nights. Title: Everlasting Covenant, The Trials of Moonshade Crossing. Description: Join Master Aaron and his apprentice Kira on an unforgettable journey across haunted forests, storm-tossed mountain passes, and hidden sanctums as they strive to restore balance to a world teetering on the brink of chaos. From the ancient sycamore's shattered seal in Moonshade Crossing to the frozen rifts of the frost veil expanse, they face 7 harrowing trials, each testing their compassion, courage, truth, sacrifice, harmony, resilience, and the art of listening. Witness spectral spirits find peace, elemental pacts reforged, and a sacred covenant of equilibrium sealed beneath moonlight. This epic fantasy adventure weaves magic, mystery, and the enduring power of unity into a legend you won't soon forget.